Hi everybody, I'm Emma, this is Emma Rose in Books. Today I wanted to film for you the Story Ideas Writing tag. I was tagged to do this about 2 months ago by Scribble Maven, and then I was tagged again a couple of weeks ago by Midnight Starlight Write. I will link their videos down below for you. Their channels are both brilliant. I just thought I ought to get on with it and film this video. It's been on my to-do list for ages and ages, so without further ado, first question, current story. What is your current story idea that you're working on right now? Well, my main one is my book Milk, which is due to come out in October. So right now the phase that I'm in is kind of the finicky little last bits on the final proof of it. So there's a couple of little, last little proofreading errors that need to be fixed, and then that will be that, and I'll go into the phase of ordering the proofs and doing the marketing and all of that stuff, and I'm hoping to do a cover reveal for you very, very soon. The other ideas I've got then, which at the moment I don't have the time to start writing another project while I'm still working on the other one because my writing time is really limited. It's the summer holidays at the moment, so all my 3 kids are at home, and I just really have very, very limited time, which is why I couldn't get a video up for you earlier in the week this week. It's, it's one of those things, life gets in the way. But the ideas that I have, I actually made a video about the various ideas I'm thinking about. I think the ones that I'm most likely to develop, there's a non-fiction idea that I don't really want to say what the topic is just yet. But I don't know if I'm ready for a project as big as another non-fiction book just now, maybe. And the other is possibly a fiction book, and the idea of that one is kind of finding who you are, but not based on kind of your relationships, and it's not like it's more to do with discovering where you come from, like where your roots belong and what your place is in the world. I think that's the idea. Anyway, we'll see where it goes. I'm just going to brainstorm them out and see what happens and which particular project seems the most interesting. It may be neither of those. Number 2, spark of inspiration. Do your ideas begin with characters, plot, world building, or something else entirely? Well, obviously with Milk being a non-fiction book, it's none of those things. The inspiration for this was that when I was breastfeeding my eldest, I thought that basically I'd made the decision of how I was going to feed him, and that I'd done a bit of reading and I'd been to an antenatal class, and that then I was going to be fine because I'd done my homework. And it turned out that things weren't straightforward, and not just the fact that I found things difficult in the early days, but actually that breastfeeding is a very nuanced dance, and there are social factors that I hadn't considered, and it ended up being a much bigger picture than I ever imagined. Also, I felt that I was told very much about how wonderful and amazing breastfeeding is, and it is those things, but it also can be hard and it can be boring, and there are negative sides as well. And I think it's very important to be honest and say it's not going to be perfect all the time, and you may come across challenges, and here's how to deal with it. And obviously it's a very variable thing depending on people's particular circumstances, and I think it's important to recognise that and put lots of stories out there, not just mine but loads, and just be honest and real. And I felt very much that what I'd been told it would be like was not how it was, and so I wanted to say this is what I found out and be honest about. Here's my experiences, here's what I learned, there you go. So yeah, that was the inspiration. For the other works I'm thinking about working on, all sorts of different things, so it depends which one I start working on. Number 3, brainstorm. How do you puzzle piece your story elements together? Do you start your way from the ending and make your way to the beginning, or vice versa? Well, with Milk, I lived it and wrote it as I lived it, so it very much was start to end, but I would write out a chapter heading and then some notes about what I intended to be in that chapter, Obviously there were parts of the book that I couldn't do anything with until I'd experienced them, but that was basically how it worked. The ones that I'm looking at now are kind of starting out as mind maps, notes, that sort of thing, which will then ultimately turn into a chronological thing. I'm very much a beginning to the end kind of a person. I can't even walk around a supermarket without, like, my husband goes around in this haphazard way and he has this weird, he goes to this aisle and then that aisle, and I can't cope with it. I have to start by the door and then you work round in order, and if I've forgotten something I find it really hard to have to go back and get it. So, but I do understand, of course, that if you're working on a book where you want it to get to a certain place and then you need to plot back through to kind of foreshadow stuff, I totally understand why you would do it the other way. And I haven't written that kind of book, so maybe if I did write that kind of thing then I would plan it out that way. But as of yet, no, beginning to end and brainstorming, notes, that's how I work. But I think these things evolve anyway. Number 4, keep or toss. How do you know when you want to keep or dump a story idea? Well, I've had a number of story ideas and I've got notes all over the place that eventually might turn into stories. I do find that sometimes something that I'm really obsessed with, I think, oh, that would make a great book one day. A couple of months down the line, I think, oh, it really isn't. So I think for me, the important thing is to sit on it for a while and wait and see if it suddenly starts to sound really terrible. Number 5, original idea. How much of your original idea for your story is actually used once everything is finished? Well, with Milk, I mean, the core of the idea is there. I have got rid of bits that I decided were boring, or, you know, I obviously have a word count, and so there was stuff that I thought was fascinating when I first wrote it in my first draft, but then had to sacrifice that to put other stuff in. Particularly once I put a lot of the non-fiction stuff in, then I had to sacrifice things about my life that I thought was scintillating, but really I'm not quite as interesting as I'd like to believe. So, you know, there are particular stories that have gone, but the actual core of the idea is totally there. The thing is, it's based on my life, so I can't change what happened in my life. Number 6, hide or share. Do you share your book ideas with friends or keep them a secret? I do keep it a secret. I tell my husband everything pretty much as it occurs to me. So he gets a running commentary of the things that are running through my brain, and he will always be honest if something's really stupid. And I have 1 or 2 particular friends that I will talk about things to, but in general I keep things to myself. And with Milk, I didn't really tell anybody that I was working on a book, and the first time I really mentioned it was when I finished the first draft. I put on Facebook, like, I've just finished a book, and even if I never do anything with it, I'm really proud of myself. That was a while ago. But I still didn't really talk about it to people, and it's only been fairly recently that I've started to say, oh yeah, no, I have written a book, and yeah, I am publishing it, and it feels a bit weird. I very much had that imposter syndrome thing. I almost feel like it's tempting fate to talk about it, and it's a bit like when you have children and you don't want to tell people what you're going to call your kids in case they say, oh yeah, I knew one of those and they were terrible. Or, you know, just tell you something that's going to ruin the name for you, and it's the same thing. I don't want to talk about what my writing idea is in case somebody says to me, oh, but what about that? And oh, isn't that the same as this book? Or, you know, I want to develop it myself. So, no, I keep it to myself, mostly. I can't remember what number we're up to. Number 7, dream. Have any of your book ideas originated with a dream or a nightmare? I do have very vivid dreams, particularly anxiety dreams. And I have like real stereotypical anxiety dreams, like on my teeth falling out or being chased, and those are always very, very clear. Or hormonal dreams as well, and they're usually crazy. And sometimes I do have a good one and I write it down. I think that could be a story, but I think that so far all of them have, in retrospect, they're not as great as they seem the next morning when I think, wow, that's such a cool story, I'm going to write that down, and then like a week later you read it and go, really? But I certainly wouldn't rule it out. I do have enough weird dreams that there may be a seed of something in there, or maybe it's all nuts, I don't know. Number 8, Doppelganger, have you ever had an idea for a story but then see a similar premise in a book or a TV show or a movie? Well, yeah, but I think you can't avoid that. There's so many stories out there that there's always going to be a similar character or setting or plot, or there's going to be some element, you know, whenever a book comes out, people say, oh, it's the new so-and-so, because it kind of everything bears a resemblance to something else. And milk, of course, there's loads of books about breastfeeding, and I talk about some of those books in my book. My book is the only one that's got my personal story in it, and I think it's the most personal, or one of the most personal breastfeeding books, just because of the nature of what it is, that it's quite a large proportion of it is memoir. But yeah, there's elements that are the same as other breastfeeding books out there, and that's okay. There was a time when I'd panic about it. There's actually a massive release of a book in September, the Positive Breastfeeding book, which looks like it's going to be brilliant. And there was a time when I would have felt really uncomfortable about that and thought, oh no, you know, there's another breastfeeding book out there. But actually good, I'm glad there is. And my book is my book and nobody can change. There might be similarities, but it's not going to be the same. And I think it doesn't matter, yeah, that's going to be the case for non-fiction, but I think it'd be the case for fiction too. I haven't really seen stuff so much on TV and movies, but then I don't really watch that much TV or films, so maybe that's why. But, you know, I don't think it's something to worry about. It's never going to be exactly the same. But all stories are going to have a thread in common with another story. I think it can't be avoided, really. Number 9, big screen inspiration. Have any of your favourite TV shows, movies sparked ideas for scenes in your book? Well, as I said, I don't really watch that much of it, but no, I mean, again, the nature of my book means that it hasn't, and my future works are too early in the stages to know whether that would happen, but I can't imagine that it would. I think music would be a more likely inspiration for me in terms of like mood, but no is the answer to that one. Number 10, nostalgia. What's the first story you remember coming up with or writing down? I've talked about this before, that I can remember writing a book in like a, you know, folded up piece of paper, booklet kind of thing, and I had it for ages, and it was called Jenny and the Giant, and I think the plot was that Jenny went out with her dad, and then her dad got like eaten by a giant, and then she just went off with the giant. I did have it for ages, I don't know what happened to it. I did make a video where I'd found an old notebook. It's kind of a bit journals and poems and stories and all sorts in there. And I went through that on a video, so I'll stick a card up there of that. There was some weird stuff in there. But yeah, it's always fun when you see stuff like that. But I was forever making up stories and poems. I went through a haiku phase for a while. Yeah, my daughter's just started doing it and it's really cute. Anyway, I think that was the last question, was it? Yeah. So I'm gonna tag some people to do this. I would like to tag Morgan Vega, because she's just uploaded her AuthorTube newbie tag and so is officially part of the AuthorTube community, I guess. And also I would like to tag Charlie Heathcote. Is it Heathcote? Charlie, tell me down below how you pronounce your surname. And because he's on my mind at the moment because I'm reading Our Doris, and also I know he's working on something at the moment, so I think it'd be interesting to hear his thoughts about storytelling because of those things. Anyway, if you fancy doing the tag, just consider yourself tagged too. If you would like to leave me a comment, then please do, and if you'd like to wow, good words, please feel free to like and comment and subscribe, and also find the links to all of my other social media bits in the bar down below, and I will see you all next time.